Tommy Byrne. You are so welcome to Flop Culture. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming.
You are the Tommy that has been mentioned oft on Patreon between myself and Owen Keane. Guys,
we're going to get in.
alert.
Okay, we're going to get into that straight away because I won't say what I picked yet, but I did have a little bit of trouble in terms of what I was going to pick for my topic.
Did you?
What a close second was going to be you and Owen on Patreon. The way in which...
You're the nastiest guest we've ever had. Oh my God.
I am Christina Aguilera in 2012 coming in this bitch, fat, broke, depressed, mad as hell. The way that I have been slandered on these podcasts, and shout out to Darragh Driscoll, I'm coming in to defend for him as well. And I think the most egregious, there's two things here about it. One, the way he keeps saying, oh, well, at least I'll never hear it. Both of us paying for the privilege. Both of us sitting at home every month, that money coming out. And the two of them like, actually, they'll never know. As if you can't see your list of subscribers. Let's talk about that for a second. I don't know, I'm not done. And then to have the audacity to opt record these podcasts in my home. You and Owen Keane sitting downstairs to cook Candice Bassett at a house. I invited you into my home. I gave you a beverage. And then to listen into these things and to have my name slandered.
Now, Tommy, I don't think I was really slandering you.
No,
I do think it was Owen.
Keane.
It was
Owen Keane.
It was Owen all along. We're happy to have him on the Patreon.
I'm not giving him any more airtime on this episode.
No, that's absolutely fair. He's not on the main feed. He stays behind the paywall like the bold
It's the
little
only
boy
place he's safe.
that he is. If anyone doesn't know what I'm talking about, listen to Pop Culture on Patreon. We're watching Sex and the City. Patreon.com/Pop Culture. But we're not here to talk about Sex and the City. We're here to talk about another TV show. Tell me what you picked.
We are here to talk about Veronica Mars.
Okay.
So Veronica Mars came out in 2003, I want to say, starring Kristen Bell as a teenage private detective, which I think if you want to talk about why it flopped, it's probably because it's about a teenage private detective. That is going to be a hard sell. But it did originally run for 3 seasons and then came back as a Kickstarter movie and then many years came back as a limited series on Hulu, I think, in the States.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like an interesting look at the way the TV has been working and how something that looks like it's ran forever actually kind of has just been consistently flopping in spite of how good I and many other people might think it is.
Yeah. Had you watched this at the time it came out? Because I know, or I think it was on RT2, one of the RTs.
I might be aging myself here, but I think it was on like Trouble or like Living TV or one of those.
Oh, Tommy, I didn't have Sky.
One of those random ones.
No, you're ratting on yourself the money, Tommy. You are ratting on yourself the money.
I think if anyone can see me, they'll know. No. Any of my friends are hearing me complain about how often I'm not going out tonight. Money isn't there. But no, I think it was on one of them. On like a Saturday morning or something, which is a really weird time to put something like this on. But I think it's just because it was like around the time of like the OC and Gilmore Girls and all of these kind of similar shows of like teens hitting the mainstream in the early 2000s. So I did watch it when it was originally on. I remember being very upset when it got cancelled after the 3rd season. And I remember it being like one of the first, at least that I was aware of, but I think it's pretty well thought of as one of the first programs that had one of those like massive online campaigns of people trying to save it. I remember at the time people were like sending Mars bars into the network in America trying to show like how many people were watching it and that people actually were kind of obsessed with it.
Okay.
But no, I was a pretty avid watcher for the first 3 seasons of it while it was on.
What drew you to it? Was it the teen drama of it all, or was it like just because it was on, or was it the detective stuff?
It was kind of coming in like a post-Buffy world.
Okay, yes.
So it was just at the time that was finishing, and it was kind of like a similar setup. Case of the week, bigger story, sassy blonde girl at the middle of it. So I think it was I was a big Buffy fan, so I think it was like an easy hook once that was finishing to go straight into it. And I think as well, it is kind of a hard sell in terms of like its concept. It does sound kind of ridiculous, but it is very good. And I think that's why it's often overlooked. Like I think if you look at like the stuff that was on at the same time that is more popular, even still, again, like Gilmore Girls or the OC or any of that kind of stuff, I think this is better.
I would agree, and I'll tell you what, the one reason why I resisted watching this, I remember it was definitely on, I think RT got it maybe later or at some point, and I remember it used to be on between Home and Away or something else, I think. I might be misremembering. I will correct the record after if I have that wrong. But it was on, and I remember I used to be like annoyed when it came on because I didn't really want to watch it because I felt it was too like quippy and kind of too funny.
It's very jokey. It's very punchy.
But I didn't realise it's as kind of dark and as like there's a lot to it, which I think a lot of people don't realise, obviously myself included.
There's so much, because I was rewatching it for this, and in that first episode, it's crazy. They pack more into that first episode than you would get in like 2 seasons of a TV show nowadays. Like, so the setup for the show, for those who haven't seen it, it's Kristen Bell is Veronica Mars. She lives in a small town in California. Her dad is the sheriff, and a year prior to the show starting, her best friend, played by Amanda Seyfried, is murdered.
Which gagged. No idea she was in this. And she's great.
So good in it as well. I think originally they were only supposed to use her for like an episode or two, and she pops up consistently just throughout the series because she's so good in it. She was the second choice for Veronica after Kristen Bell, I believe. So Amanda Seyfried is murdered a year prior to the show. Kristen Bell as Veronica Mars, her dad is the sheriff. He wrongly accuses her father, and they're kind of ran out of the rich society that they had previously been a part of. And it's kind of this class dichotomy amongst the school that Veronica's in, of this like very wealthy Californian town, and the poor students that go there as well.
Yeah.
But then also in the first episode, you've got her father starting a new career as a PI, the fact that her mother is an alcoholic has left, also dealing with Veronica's rape at a party after her best friend's murder, and then just all of the like subsidiary characters that are very quickly introduced into it as well. So there's so much that goes into it straight away, which I think probably overloaded audience a bit as well. Like, I even found it a lot watching it, knowing what was coming.
Yeah, I did find it a lot, but I found like the storytelling and the performances were good enough that I was like, oh yeah, fair enough. Like, I'm just along for the ride now.
Yeah, because it's kind of funny. The one thing, it's a weird comparison, but the first thing that it kind of reminded me of when I went back and watched it this time, it's almost like The Simpsons. Like, the town is like Springfield in that it's so well populated by all of these crazy cast of characters immediately. So there is a lot to hook onto with it, even if it is a lot to take. And then I think even with what you're saying about it being like quite dark, you don't think it's going to be as serious as it's going to be.
But it is still funny. Like,
still
the scripting
really funny.
is still very funny. And obviously, I think a lot of that is around Kristen Bell as well, who is like phenomenal.
They're all of a lifetime. She's amazing in it. She's amazing in a lot of things. She has kind of been playing a version of Veronica Mars. I think if you watch through all of it, in a lot of stuff, she is just playing a version, like especially like the new stuff I think that she's done on Netflix and that.
Yeah,
it's
and
all
like The Good Place, which I never finished, but she is just like quippy girl on that essentially.
It all comes from this, but she's so good in it.
Like, because especially I found even watching the season finale of season 1, so tense. Like,
so tense.
So grim. That scene in the fridge where they eventually, like, again,
in terms of like the mystery. So see, like the show is kind of built around trying to find out what happened to her best friend. Yeah. Did you see any of it coming? Did you have guesses throughout it, or?
I had actually thought it was the mom, like Lily's mom, at some point early on. So I didn't really know. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, I wish I had watched at the time, because I can imagine getting this weekly, and like there's a really good piece that I link in the show notes about how like Veronica Mars and a Gloss was on around this time as well, and these were like the first kind of internet shows, as you talked about those campaigns there, but like social media kind of still wasn't a thing, but you had
to be on stuff like TV Without Pity and all of those like fan boards of like coming on every week and discussing it. Yeah.
The whole Duncan being the brother maybe storyline, not really sure what was going on there. That was
originally
bananas.
I was reading up about it as well. So originally the show had been sold to like, I think it was like Showtime, or one of those ones that a much more like grown-up network than the CW that it was on. And originally the main twist was going to be that they were siblings after they had slept together, which would have been a little too much.
Teen shows are obsessed with incest.
Obsessed.
It's bonkers.
It doesn't, I don't think it sells as well as people think it does.
No.
I don't get it. It would have been a real turn-off if you had found out that they were siblings, considering they do spend the whole season making you think that they should be together.
Yeah.
It was a choice.
I don't know how we move on from that.
It's like I don't know how to get out of that. But it is a choice.
Yeah, and it does just kind of undermine like the good work
I will
they do.
say in the episode where he says that he knew that they might be siblings, and she's crying at his door. She's so good in it. It's crazy that she never got an Emmy for this show.
Yeah. Like, they'd handle it, incest storyline aside, that storyline about her and about like how nobody helped.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, there's so many people there and nobody helped. It's like, it's obviously, it's not an easy watch, but it's like so good for the time, really well handled.
And because like, even in explaining it here, it is so tonally a show that like runs all over the place.
Yeah.
It's impossible to get a grasp on it. And it balances them really well. But I can see why like a viewership maybe never caught on, because you are a bit like, I don't know what I'm sitting down for this week. If I'm sitting down to watch it, am I getting Veronica as a teenager helping someone find their lost dog, or am I finding out that her maybe brother raped her?
Yeah.
And like both of those things happen in the first season.
Yeah. Like, I think that's the thing. I think maybe that's what, and I don't think it was this particular scene I saw, but again, as you said, it's probably one of the other kind of smaller cases, we'll say. Like, if you saw the scene where she's like dressed up as an e-girl going to that internet cafe.
It's so cringy, and it's you would
think
write
it's
it
just
off.
that. Yeah. Which maybe there's a good version of that, I don't know, but there is so much substance to this.
And it veers in and out of it, I think, in a really clever way. And it does a lot of stuff that I think shows now are kind of still a little bit afraid of doing. Like, I think even in the first season, a huge part of it, even what you're saying about like her character and no one there to help her, it does kind of paint her as a bit of an anti-hero. Like, she isn't super likable. She isn't super likable, but more than that, it lets her kind of be unlikable and it lets her be wrong. Like, I'm not sure, is it in the first or second season, the episode, it's Leighton Meester plays a student accusing Adam Brody, who's a teacher, of sleeping with her and paying for her abortion. Again, the show is often a comedy.
Yeah.
And I think if you do that story now, it's all about like the power imbalance and all of these things. But in the episode, she's defending the teacher. And she goes to great lengths to say, no, I'm going to prove her wrong, which she does. But then you find out that he was actually just doing it with another student. But that's just the resolution. And the resolution is, no, she picked the wrong horse and she goes and defends this man. And she goes to great lengths to like make this woman seem like she's lying. But it just kind of lets you sit with that and kind of judge her based on everything else. Whereas I think other shows would go the opposite way. Like they would have her defending the woman and all those things, which would be right to do. But I think it's an interesting, like, stylistic choice to just allow her to often be wrong. And I think that can also be kind of off-putting for viewers, that you're supposed to be rooting for her, you're supposed to be liking her. But she does these things that are a bit more nuanced and a bit more complicated. Yeah,
as all humans are, and especially all teenage girls are.
Yes, and I think it's a more, again, not to keep comparing it, but I just think the two like other teen shows that were on at the same time, being like the Gilmore Girls and the OC, you're constantly rooting for like those characters and they're so vindicated, and it's a more nuanced and I think interesting take to be like, oh no, hold on, she's fallible. And to run with that for like episodes on end, which also I just think will probably turn people off it.
Even with the likes of the Logan like that, them being the two, I remember going into like season 2 or whatever and seeing that it was her that it was him at the door or whatever, and that they were embarking on this relationship, and I was like, what I was like, Veronica girl, what are you doing? What? It's just, but also I realised then that it was like fan reactions.
So yeah, it was also, I think, as you say, with the online reaction to it and it being kind of one of the first online shows, obviously like shippers and the people who like are passionate about those like relationships go crazy for those things.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, even like being a nerdy little 14-year-old and being on those boards, like people being obsessed with them. Like you couldn't do anything that was getting in the way of them, or the fans would go nuts.
Which I just can't really fathom, especially in that first season.
As someone who's watched every episode of this show and the movie, I don't like them together.
No.
They don't belong.
No.
Leave her with Duncan.
Leave her with Duncan. Justice for Duncan.
Justice
what was
for
going
Duncan.
On there?
They sent him off to Australia with that baby.
Bizarre as well. Nuts. When I saw that again, I was like, what?
Now, he, I think, interestingly, the actor who was doing it, like, quit the show to go to law school and has not acted since.
Yes,
so I think that was more.
We have to write around
We have
this.
to write him off.
Yeah.
But also, it'll annoy people who've watched the show. But Veronica and Logan, I never bought it.
No, I don't. It's like they are, like he's hitting out her headlights with a golf club at the start of season 1.
Yeah, he's an insane person who is like, it's so toxic. And he's this like pretty little rich boy. Go off at one of the bikers. It is famously a school that has a biker gang.
Incredible. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Like, no, it's, this like actual motorcycle gang populate this high school. And no one says anything about it.
Yeah, I kind of didn't, I thought they were like kind of separate to the school until it was
until you see them in a class.
Yeah, until you see them in the class. And then it was the whole thing of like, I need to graduate, let me graduate. I was like, I thought you were just kind of hanging around.
It would kind of make more sense that you were just hanging outside the school smoking.
Yeah, like
not like, oh, I'm gonna murder you, but also I have a double maths.
I'm flat out, girls.
I'm flat out, yeah. I actually have study after work. Like, do you mind? Like, it's, yeah. The politics of the town in it are kind of crazy in that it's like billionaires going to school with like
Normies,
biker gangs
quote
and
unquote.
normies. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it does kind of take a hop, skip, and a jump to like actually start believing that.
Because that's the whole thing as well. Like after Lily's murder and stuff, Veronica obviously takes her dad's side, and like, but he's like disgraced, and they're working together still. So she's like totally ostracized from this. What are they? The 09ers?
The 09ers,
The
yeah.
09ers, like the rich kids, whatever. And you see her kind of struggling with that and being the outcast, but then it brings you, like, she's still having to deal with that in the second season, where it's like you've some people looking at her being like, because she's trying to leave this life behind, and they're all accusing her of, you're just another rich girl gone back with your rich friends and you won't help everyone else now, and which I do think is there is
interesting
layered
dynamics in it, and how it is from like moment one, like banging you over the head with that this is a show about class commentary, but it does, I think, weave that interestingly enough into it. Like, it does actually have, I think, a fair bit to say about it, which again, I suppose if you're watching this teen soap, you're not expecting it, and is probably another contributing factor into why it was kind of always on the brink of cancellation. But it does, I think, have like an interesting point of view on like the class dynamics of America. That I do think are, especially in like the movie and the Hulu series, where she's like an adult, you can kind of take a bit more seriously.
Yeah.
And it's easier to take her as more of like a serious character, just by the virtue of the fact that she is older.
Yeah.
In it.
Did you find the first season satisfying?
I love the resolution of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I do think. Were we just spoiling who the killer is?
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah. Spoiler. Yeah.
So it ends up being Logan's dad, who Logan was Lily's boyfriend at the time that she died, Veronica's best friend, and now Logan is Veronica's boyfriend.
Which I think even, sorry to go across it, but like even that perspective at all, I am like,
very
but it adds to that whole thing of like, yeah, again, she's not perfect. She's making kind
and
of
also
mad.
They're 16.
Yeah.
Like, so of course they're all shifting each other.
Yeah. True.
It ends up being Logan's dad who's the killer because he was having an affair with Lily. Played iconically by Harry Hamlin, who
terrifying
who plays his wife, Lisa Rinna. Are you a Housewives girlie?
Incredible. Of course I am. Yeah.
My introduction to the two of them, I had totally forgot about that when she showed up when I was rewatching it, and Lisa Rinna walks in episode 6 playing his wife. I was gagged. It was iconic. I mean, there's some iconic guest stars in the first season alone. Paris Hilton shows up in episode 2.
Incredible. Never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again. Kristen Cavallari plays a lesbian cheerleader. Iconic. I mean, it's very
so
2000s.
good.
But did I find the mystery resolution satisfying? Yeah, I did. I did, actually. Because the Aaron Eccles, the murderer, his like abusive nature is kind of hinted at throughout it. And you see obviously all the stuff with him and Logan. But you never think of actually piecing him together in a room with Lily, or at least I didn't.
Yeah.
That they're two characters who kind of exist separate of one another.
Yeah.
But by the time it is actually all brought together, I thought that was kind of like a smart resolution to it. How did you think of it? Like once it's all.
No, I think especially when it goes back to the whole, and again, how it portrays Lily as this kind of like free-spirited, kind of a bit of a, like
she's very like rich girl, like,
but like
parents.
Constantly looking to push boundaries and break the rules and see whatever she can get away with, and like loves getting with fellas, what I mean? Like that's.
But then Amanda Seyfried also sells her as so likable.
Yes.
In all of the flashbacks, she's never like annoying.
Yeah.
Which she easily could veer into, I think, if it was someone else.
Yeah. But they were clearly very good friends as well. So again, that makes the other, like, the head scratchy thing of getting with Logan after. I'm just a bit like, I don't know.
I suppose it's a whole trauma bonding thing is how they're selling it.
What about the mam storyline then? What do you think of that and how that was? Because obviously she's like, Veronica is like haunted by because she's dealing with alcoholism, but she leaves also in the wake of them being fucked out from the community, essentially. Yeah. And Veronica's like trying to deal with that in this first season. And she does come back, but she does not carry through to the following seasons. What happens and what did you think of that?
I thought it was interesting because the Veronica and Keith stuff, like Veronica and her dad, is so the heart of it.
So good.
And it's like, I actually don't care about her ending up with anyone else or her relationship with anyone else. It's the two of them.
Yeah.
And when he finds out that he is her biological father and all of that, like that is the heart of the show. And I think when the show is at its best, it's just when it's the two of them talking.
Yeah.
And then I think the stuff with her mom is really interesting. It is a little bit wasted, I think. Because like you say, she doesn't come back in the following seasons. So it does kind of just go nowhere. Like she kind of comes in, plays her part and then leaves. Now I do think the stuff of like when Veronica finds out that she's still drinking and all of that, it's very hard hitting, but I think that's more to do with Kristen Bell.
Yeah, I think so.
Like when she find out and you know that there's vodka in the water bottles and all of that, it's really sad, but I'm kind of happy for her to go off and do her own thing.
Yeah.
In kind of looking back into stuff for this, maybe I had just forgot they had come out, but there was 2 novels released.
Yes.
Which were never available over here.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, but one of them does deal with her meeting her mother again.
Okay.
I found like a Reddit thread from years ago. And she's like living in another city and has a son.
Yeah, and I had heard the creator, the guy that's behind this, had said that he considers, I think this was either the movie or the Hulu series come out, it might have been the movie, and he said those novels are considered like canon, like the events that happen, like they are going to.
They're in it.
Yeah. Interesting, okay, maybe
because I think as well with the way the mother doesn't come back, one of the things that I think is interesting about it is so often with shows like this, be it like, because it is that kind of like serialized stuff of like the way like Buffy or something did it, is that in the second season you also have, they're still dealing with the ramifications of this. Like often these things are like so season based, whereas this actually is, oh no, hold on a second, yes, we found out who killed her, but there is more to that story, and it's everything else is carried over, which again I suppose makes it harder to get into, and probably why it was always on the brink of cancellation.
Well, like in some ways it feels like a harder show to binge because
you can't just jump in either.
Yeah, because it is like there's so much to it, and like it's so frustrating because I hate talking about TV when it's like there's so much of it, there's too much of it, when like obviously it was a product of that time where it was released weekly. Like it's...
But you did kind of need to see every episode as well, because there is a hint to a larger mystery or something that will be important 7 episodes down the line. So you can't just be like, oh, I'll drop in or I'll watch it this week and I'll skip it next week, which at the time you were sitting down on a Thursday or whatever just to watch it. So that does make it more difficult to... Yeah.
I think also with the seasons being so long though, you have more room for those, like they're like the arcs are like, for the most part, like really properly fleshed out across the season. And as you said, there are things that carry over kind of season to season, but like season 2 and season 3 focus on different
mysteries.
Cases and mysteries. Exactly. So it's just, I find with shows now, like, and again, this isn't every show, needless to say, but like, because streaming's so precarious and stuff like that, and this is not to say that network television, and obviously they were always on the brink of cancellation, whatever, but like because the future is so unknown for TV now, that it's like sometimes either they're ending on these massive cliffhangers with the view that like we're definitely going to get something, and then it's like, oh no, it's cancelled,
or you're not on for another 2 years.
Yeah, and then it's like, well, how do people remember? And then it's like with Severance. Like Severance is obviously, I don't know when this.
Don't spoil it. I actually haven't watched.
Okay, I'm not going to. But Severance does end on like a fairly significant cliffhanger. That show came out 8,000 years ago at this point, and again, I know there were things that happened in between, like the pandemic and strikes and all that.
But even still, like it's saying, like I saw the trailer for Bad Sisters 2 this morning, and I'm like, okay, that's great. I love all those women. What happened in the first season? Do not ask me. I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's a show that if someone asked me, did I enjoy it? I would say, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Can I name a character? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Whereas, I suppose, with that, you were running September to May, back in September.
Yeah.
There's just such a... It's funny to talk about a show that did kind of flop when you look at it now, that even in its first run had 60 episodes. When a show now, in 5 years, might have 20 and be considered a success.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, I will say, as much as they're talking about it flopping, like this first series was very critically acclaimed on a lot of best of lists that year.
I think it was like a very cool show to like at the time. It felt like something, even when people were talking about it online, that like it was a little bit under the radar. And then even in the second season, you have people like Kevin Smith and Joss Whedon, who, I mean, no, problematic now, but at the time, it was like, oh, people who are into TV really like this, and it
kind of gave it a bit of legitimacy or something.
Legitimacy and a bit of an edge, and like, oh, if you knew, you knew sort of vibe.
Yeah, we were there from the start.
Yeah, very that.
Yeah. The ratings were pretty good as well, I think, initially. Like, well, again, I'm saying this as in comparing it to it now. Where it's like, get an average of 2.5 million viewers per all the episodes of the first season, which again is like unheard of now. Probably not huge at the time and for network television over
No,
there,
and it was
but-
on a smaller network as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, probably all right for the time.
Yeah. Okay, season 2 then. Where are we? What's happening?
So season 2, we found out who killed Lily as a resolution to the end of the first season. Veronica's back in school. It's her senior year. She's like giving up her whole private eye thing. She's just going back. She's back dating the most popular boy in school. They go on a field trip where iconically Kristen Ritter shows up. who's
Incredible.
So good in this
Incredible.
show. It's crazy she
Our
hasn't
flat
been in.
queen. Have you watched Don't Trust the Bee in Apartment 23?
Oh, obsessed with this. Crazy that she hasn't been in more comedies.
I know.
So they go on a field trip, and then to everyone's surprise, on the way home from the field trip, the bus that the school kids are traveling on drives off a cliff. And we learned that it was intentionally sabotaged. So the second season is set up as a mystery of why the bus went over the cliff and how did Veronica manage to just escape it in the nick of time.
Yeah.
Which is a bit more convoluted than My Best Friend Has Died.
You're telling me? Oh
So
my God.
again, there's a lot more mysteries kind of brought into season 2. And it is kind of working rings around itself to justify the length of them.
Yeah.
Now, I do think that because just before the bus crashes, Veronica has just managed to get off it and it's driven off without her. So I think the idea that's kind of fleshed out throughout the season was it's done to intentionally harm her specifically is a real interesting thread. I think the second season episodically is probably stronger. I think the mystery itself is a tough.
Well, I think there's also the whole thing with Logan. Did he murder? Who murdered?
Yeah, Logan is
one
being
of the,
framed
one of
for
Weevil's
murder for one of the
friends.
one of the bikers. You've got kind of a cast of characters around it that they do kind of struggle to justify them still being there. It's like Wallace doesn't really have a lot to do. He starts going out with Tessa Thompson, who's also shown up.
Thank you. I was like, you're so familiar. And I was looking on
It's
IMDb
so
and the name
crazy.
wasn't coming up quick enough. So I was like, it'll come to me later.
It's so crazy. I mean, the amount of people that are
Incredible.
in this show is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
even in the second season, Kristen Ritter, Tessa Thompson, Jessica Chastain is in an episode, Aaron Paul is in an episode. Like, it is a treasure trove of like people who would go on to become so super famous.
Yeah.
I think the second season is very strong, as I say, in terms of like writing and getting from episode to episode. I think the overall mystery is a bit of a struggle, and it does kind of get a bit cartoonish by the end.
Yeah. The season finale isn't as like satisfying or as like tense as
No.
the first. Like they really nailed it with that. And like
And the
all
first
their-
one is so claustrophobic and so
Yes.
scary. And like
Yeah.
you say, whenever Lily's murderer is going after her and he traps her in the fridge and there's the fire around her and it all feels very personal. Whereas the second season, I do still think it's really strong, but it's everyone is a bit more detached from it. So it's kind of hard to sink your teeth into it as much.
Yeah. Had you watched it at the time or is that on a rewatch? How is it all comparing for you now?
I had watched it all at the time, but I think even going back and watching it again, like she really comes into her own in the second season. They all just feel a bit more grown up. And I do think the mystery of like the bus crash and how they bring in extra characters into it, it's very well resolved. But because the actual resolution isn't something that's personal to Veronica, it is a bit.
I get
it's
it. Yeah.
It's a bit more. It's a
detached.
bit like all of this would have just happened anyways to a
Yeah.
certain extent.
Yeah.
But it's Kristen Bell sells it all so good, and there's a scene in the last episode of the second season where she thinks the dad has died,
Yes.
and she's standing on like the roof of the hotel that like they're having a party in, and she's just distraught, and it's impossible not to go with her
Yeah, but
because
then
she
when
just is so good.
and like I obviously knew he walked because obviously the way this show goes on and whatever,
Yeah.
and I just had known from research. But like when he does kind of walk in, then like obviously I'm delighted he's back, but I was just a bit like, right.
You were
Do you know
never
what I
gonna
mean?
you were
Like,
never
it
gonna
is-
make her an orphan.
Yeah, like it was just there's no threat there, you know?
Yeah.
Season 3 then, she's off to college, girls.
She's off to college.
She's
girls.
off to college.
Season 3 is tough because I think they just barely made it to season 3.
Yeah, sorry, so hilariously. So they were obviously airing in the States and then they were like pleased with the ratings for it or whatever, but it got put on hiatus for a while before the
Yeah.
last 5 episodes to air iconically the reality series Pussycat Dolls Presents. So then
Oh
that
my God,
aired.
bring that back.
And then they were like, truly, yeah. So then that aired, and then they returned with the last 5 episodes. So
Yeah.
you can imagine, again, even from a pure watching perspective, you're keeping up with this show. I
And
don't know
then
how
it's gone.
long the Pussycat Doll show ran for, but I'm going to presume like at least a couple of weeks, 3-4
at
weeks.
least. Oh,
so
I'd
then
say
it's
longer,
like,
yeah.
that's such an inordinate amount of time at that time.
They
you know?
also changed the structure for season 3. So the first 2 seasons kind of deal with this like season-long arc. Season 3 starts with like it's going to be the same, where she goes to her local university, which, as in most American shows, it just so happens that there is a local university in the town that's never been mentioned,
Yeah.
and all of her friends go there.
Yeah.
And there is and again, reminder, this show is often a comedy, a serial rapist on campus.
It's
So
It's crazy.
It's so crazy.
Because
But-
even I feel like if you haven't watched it and you're listening to this and you're like, they're laughing, I'm like, if you watched it, you get it.
Because actually the storyline of it is set up, and it does do a very, I think anyways, even in, because sometimes you watch these programs from like 20 years ago and they're dealing with these kind of topics. The actual topic of a serial rapist on a university campus being related to like a frat house is held with a really deft touch and like language that I think people would still be happy with today. It's not like salacious. It's never.
Again, it kind of speaks to it. I don't want to say radical because that's too strong a word, but just the way they were able to handle these like kind of big topics in a way that was, as you said, handled well. And like regretfully, we're talking about situations that are still happening where how many years later, and it's
And I think like when I laugh at the idea of the storyline, it's certainly not like the content of it. It's just the fact that
they are able to do
the show is sold as a comedy, and but they do a great hand of like managing, of like spinning a lot of plates. But they also shorten the mystery. So for the first 2 seasons, it was season long ones. This one it does I think like a 9-episode arc and then a 6-episode arc of a different mystery, and then it comes back, like you said, after the Pussycat Dolls for like 5 standalone episodes. I think as a way to try and like encourage people to be able to like jump in at different points throughout the season. It doesn't really work.
That doesn't work.
And the third season really, really, like, it's shaky ground from day one. I think it is trying to do an awful lot when if it just scaled it back, everyone would be better served.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because they bring in like some new characters and it does breathe a bit of fresh air into it.
Chris Lowell, my
Chris
flop
Lowell,
king. I Met Your Father. Oh.
Justice
for floppy-haired brunette men. That's what I said. That's what I always say famously.
Paul Rudd shows up for a bit, but it's never able to kind of capture the magic of the high school years, which is kind of so often the case, I think, with these shows.
Is there any other examples to show? When Sabrina went to college, that's pretty decent, isn't it?
And they kind of tossed everyone out of the house. Yeah. Is there any show that really like manages to do the college thing well?
I don't know.
I feel like once One Tree Hill skipped it, everyone started skipping it.
Yeah. I haven't seen One Tree Hill in so long. I need that. Also,
like quite famously with this, when the third season was, it was very much looking like the writing was on the wall in terms of cancellation.
Yeah, like they didn't know whether this was happening, essentially. Like,
so they end on a little bit of a cliffhanger again, I think, to try and encourage people to bring it back. But then they made a short episode for the network, which was like leaked online. Which is 5 years in the future, Veronica works for the FBI.
Yes.
Is sent back to high school because Kristen Bell looks so young. And it's like, we've just got back to high school, guys.
Okay, so like a 21 Jump Street kind of thing.
Very 21 Jump Street, yeah. Which I don't know.
Would you have wanted that?
No. I think like an FBI angle could be kind of interesting, but it's like, if you're doing the college thing, just do the college thing.
Yeah.
Stick to your guns.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't necessarily
work. Okay, but what does work about this for you? Does anything work about this particular season for you? Any high points?
I think it does actually kind of start to do something that's interesting with like Logan and his relationship with Veronica, because obviously the fans were so incensed about them. And it is that kind of classic thing, like you say, where he is like smashing her car and kind of awful to everyone around him. And she's like constantly running on the high of like all of this like trauma that's happening to her. And it starts something that's picked up later on in the Hulu series where it's like, okay, fine, we'll put them together because that's what the fans wanted, but we'll make you hate it.
Yeah.
And we'll fine. Like, you have to realize that we're trying to write real people, and if these were real people, this is all toxic and this is a terrible environment to be in, and we'll actually show you the ramifications of that rather than having them all living in a cartoon.
Yeah.
Where like everything's back to normal at the end of an episode.
Mm.
And I think the seeds of that are kind of put in season 3, which is, again, I don't think something that like TV shows do very often, where they're like almost aggressive towards the audience in giving them what they want. Which is, again, probably another reason why people turned off it in the 3rd season. But I actually, in watching it, and especially watching it back now for this, I kind of prefer it. Like, so much of it is shouting at the audience in a way that a lot of stuff that I think is made now is made just to be like pandering, yeah. And I don't think this one does at all.
No,
especially
definitely not.
in the newest season.
Yeah. Did you ever root for Veronica and Piz?
I did.
Why are we calling characters Piz?
Why are we calling characters Piz? Piz was kind of nerdy.
I couldn't actually believe they were all saying that with a straight face. I was like, this is mental.
Piz was
P-I-Z.
Yeah. Piz at the time was certainly what I thought was cool. He was like into music and he had like a fringe.
The character, 16-year-old Fionnuala would have ate that up, silver spoon.
That's what I wanted to be. Oh no.
Crazy.
No.
And I was also kind of rooting for it, but I think it was also that he just wasn't.
He was nice and he was nice to her and he was sweet.
And you know what they
say, back in the days where I thought I'd end up with someone like Kristen Bell. Because I was watching a show called Veronica Mars. As if the writing wasn't on the wall.
Oh, God.
So I was always rooting for Piz.
Always rooting for Piz, girls. Sorry, what about Max Greenfield's character as well?
Max Greenfield, actually, that's who I'm rooting for. Leo, Deputy Leo. And we will ignore the fact that he was 21 and going out with a 16-year-old.
Oh, God.
Which they do. They're 17. They do reference it at the time, but it's all very sweet and PG. He plays a local police officer.
He's very hot.
He's better in this than he's been in anything else.
Yeah.
He's
better than New Girl? Oh, we've got a New Girl hater in the house.
He's suave in this. He does like we all like Schmidt and New Girl, but he does have like the whole douche thing going on. Whereas in this, he's suave.
Yeah.
And he sells it.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I'm putting her with anyone, I'm putting her with Max Greenfield. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And again, someone who pops back up in the Hulu series, and I was like, yeah, why are you with this other guy?
Yeah.
Be with him.
Sorry, we never talked about the Irish family in season 2. Can you just explain that for anyone? Because it's
much like there is a teenage bicycle gang. There is they're on motorbikes, but they might as well just be running around on BMXs. Like they're 14. There is a number of crime families set up across the universe of the town that they live in. One of which is the Fighting Fitzpatricks, a crime family that apparently originates from Wicklow because they obviously own a pub, shock horror. They're all alcoholics covered in leprechaun tattoos because, I mean...
Like Celtic tattoos, it's crazy.
Who amongst us? They are based out of their Irish pub that they run that is just covered in Wicklow fags, which I really want to know, how did they settle on Wicklow fags?
Why Wicklow?
Why Wicklow? Yeah. Like, was it just the first one? Were they just like, let's Google somewhere? Or is it like how there's loads of Ballymun references in SpongeBob?
Are there lots of Ballymun references in SpongeBob?
Yeah, one of the animators in like the original SpongeBob is from Ballymun. So you often see like buses that are going to Ballymun in SpongeBob. Unless I've been duped by a Twitter thread. So one of those things is true. Either I've fallen for misinformation,
Classic.
which...
We will be checking that after the fact, girls.
Or someone from Ballymun works on SpongeBob.
Yeah. Okay, fascinating.
But anyways, yeah.
I think it was also maybe the easiest to pronounce, ?
But it's not, it's never actually like mentioned where they're from. It's just in the pub. It's just decked out in Wicklow gear.
Well, yeah, actually, was it all props could get?
Yeah.
Were there any other movies or TV shows at that time that it could have
that had Wicklow people in it?
Maybe, yeah.
I can't even name anyone from Wicklow now.
Oh, wow. Rinsed. Okay.
But yeah, Irish Crime Syndicate, because why not?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so good. So good. Okay, so we are up to, I was about to say modern time, which technically isn't correct. Season 3, done and dusted, but at this point it's really, we were on Shaking Ground going into the season.
On Shaking Ground going into it,
cancelled. What happens?
Everyone kind of immediately online anyway starts like calling for a movie, and there's all talk about how's it going to come back. As I said earlier, there's like a fan petition to send like marshmallows and Mars bars into the network as a means of like showing how many people are into it.
Can you explain the marshmallow thing for anyone that's not familiar?
So in the first episode where Veronica's kind of talking about how much of a badass she is, she kind of like ironically says, oh, you know what people say about me? They call me a marshmallow. So much like any stands. They all named themselves something.
The first kind of stand-dom question
Definitely
mark?
the first one I ever came across where like the big fan groups were calling themselves Marshmallows.
Yeah.
And it kind of stuck up until certainly the Kickstarter. So show gets cancelled. There's kind of all this immediate talk of what's going to happen next. And for years and years, there's talk of, is there going to be a movie? How would there be a movie? Kristen Bell goes on to like Heroes pretty soon afterwards for a while. And I just remember that anytime she did press for anything, it's always brought up, how are we doing it? How are we doing it? So you cut to like 2012, everyone and their mother is raising money on Kickstarter. So she puts up a launch video along with Rob Thomas, the creator, saying if they can get to, I think it's like 5 million or something, they'll do a movie. If memory serves, it was like the fastest Kickstarter ever to reach its goal or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might, at the time it was. It might have changed
certainly
now.
anyways. So a movie goes into production pretty quickly. And kind of amazingly, considering how famous a lot of the people off the show got, everyone is back straight away. So you've got, obviously, Kristen Bell, Enrica Colantoni playing her dad, Logan's coming back, Ryan Hansen's coming back. But you have also got like a Kristen Ritter, Martin Short from Freaks and Geeks comes into it. A bunch of people kind of populate it again. And all of the main cast come back. And it is very serendipitously 10 years after the show has finished. So it is all built around the idea of Veronica's 10-year high school reunion.
So they'd launched the campaign. I think it was a 2 million goal, and they got it in less than 11 hours. And in total, they raised 5.7 million. And it got like positive reviews. It did not make its money back. I think it was like 3.5 million worldwide against what ended up being a $6 million budget.
I think it's the kind of thing where, because there was, it's one of those things where like, does the online fan base really like translate into like how many real people does that translate into and are actually going to go to the cinema? And especially like in the US, where if you're doing a small release, you're really only doing it in like New York and LA. So it can only be on so many screens. And like it certainly didn't get a cinema release over here. So it's like, how much money can you really make back on something like that?
Does it translate as a film though? Like I get obviously why they fundraised for that, because there was no work for it as a TV show, and it wasn't at a point where, you know, now we have so many other networks and streamers to choose from.
No, it needs an episodic basis, and so much of the movie is done. So much of the movie is spent setting up the premise of the TV show.
Obviously, because obviously you're trying to get people who might not have watched to also get it as well. And that's really hard.
Yeah, so you're kind of like, no one's winning.
Yeah.
In terms of fans of the show are like, I know this.
Yeah.
Why are we spending so long doing this? Why is so many scenes explaining who someone is to someone? And then if I'm watching that as like someone who's fresh faced and never seen the TV show, I'm like, God, a lot of this is just people talking about how they know each other.
Yeah.
And how interesting actually is that to anyone. Now, I think it does a really good job. So it's set up around, they're at the 10-year high school reunion. Veronica's high school boyfriend, Logan, has been accused of murdering one of their classmates. She comes back into town.
Just insane.
Crazy. She comes back into town. She was never going to go to the reunion. She comes back to help him. They haven't spoke since the series finished. It does a really good job, I think, at the end of like setting up where it goes next. But I think it's so focused as a movie on setting up a sequel that you're never actually involved in what's happening now. Which I think is kind of why it also is, even critically, it's like, if you like the show, it's just really fun to spend time with these characters. But narratively, we're kind of at a loss here.
Yeah. Did you like it otherwise?
I like it, but again, I'm like a big fan of the show. I'm a big fan of her. I'm happy just to sit and watch those people do anything. So when she's like putting on disguises and breaking into houses, or they're referencing like episodes of the TV show, I'm like, oh yeah, this is just fun. Now, is it something I would go back and revisit very often? No. But if I was watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm happy to see her. I'm always happy to see her play Veronica.
Yeah. That happens. It kind of seems like that happens. That's the thing it was. That's a nice maybe conclusion question mark to the story. But of course then streaming becomes what it is. It's huge. It's giving these old shows new life. You have Gilmore Girls going on to Netflix and having this huge revival, and it's happening with lots of other shows basically. So then Hulu or whatever comes a knocking, and it's like, fuck it, will we do it again? And we'll do a limited series.
Yeah.
How does it work?
So it comes back as an 8-episode series. So the movie ends, or rather, this is to put it into context, the movie begins, Veronica's living in New York, she's becoming a lawyer, she's given up her PI lifestyle. Movie ends, she's back in California, she's giving up being a lawyer, she's resigned herself to the fact that she's obsessed with being a PI.
This is her
and this
vocation.
is her life.
Yeah.
So the setup for the miniseries is she's back in Neptune, her hometown. She's in a long-term relationship with Logan again, who's kind of got on the straight and narrow. He's joined the military. And
Crazy. As you're saying that out, I'm like, this is so nuts.
And she's back working as a private eye in her hometown that is still just as corrupt as ever and still as like class-driven as ever. And there are a series of serial bombings. And it's up to her to find out what's happening.
My memory of this at the time was that the miniseries is bad, right? But again, you look at some of the critical consensus, like it's pretty well reviewed on the likes of Rotten Tomatoes and stuff like that. Am I wrong there? What was the response to it?
What happened is, and I think to go back even to something I probably should have said at the start, is that the whole, this is my wanky film background coming at me now.
Stunning.
The whole show is set around the idea of film noir. It's about taking like the classic private eye and what kind of situations they find themselves in and what would that be like if it was a small, pretty blonde woman, and flipping all of these tropes on its head.
Because originally it was supposed to be a man. And then,
it was supposed to be a man. So the show, when it comes back, is originally quite well received. And then things start to change.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Even amongst the fans.
Okay.
And I will say I love the reboot of it, the 8 episodes. Because again, it's doing this thing of, it's nearly commenting on the fact that people have been calling on it to come back for so long. And it's like, what is the reality of a woman who's now in her 40s, who's been through all of this awful trauma, and you want it to be this kind of like, she's quirky and punchy and making jokes. And it's actually like consistently reminding you, literally in what the characters are saying, this is bad for you. She shouldn't be doing this. This is an addiction for her. And all of the things that go wrong in her life are essentially due to the fact that she can't help herself when it comes to like solving these things that happen around her. So even with her and Logan together in the newest season, he, as we say, he was like spoiled little rich kid going around smashing cars, getting in fights. He's grown up. He's an adult. He's saying to her, you need to stop. You need to settle down. We're grown-ups now.
Yeah.
And she's having
none of it.
And I think that's kind of talking to the fans as much as it is anything, who are like begging for more and more. And it's like, okay, you want this. It's bad for her. And we're going to show you that it's bad for her and that she shouldn't be doing these things. And I don't think when people are watching it, that's what they want. They just want like, oh, it's fun and she's cool and quirky and she's, going around beating up boys. And it's like, no, actually, we're going to give you something more adult.
Yeah.
And I think that's not what people wanted.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because obviously we had seen her like dealing with various traumas and stuff like that. But even, like the death of Lily wasn't as a result of her doing this private eye stuff. And
but so much that actually happens in the show is.
Yes, yeah.
Because they have to justify the show.
Yeah.
But it's also like, okay, if we're going to do that, well, let's, everyone in the show in the newest season has like grown up and got jobs, or her dad is retiring, and they're all like, this is unhealthy for you. And her words, constantly refers to herself as like an adrenaline junkie and addicted to the
rush of it and the
high of it. And I think when people are watching it, they don't want to be reminded of like someone who's dealing with addiction issues. And that's what the show kind of becomes about, which I think makes it far, far more interesting because it's grown up now. And I think people wanted it to just be, oh, hold on, this was fun when she was like finding lost dogs and she was 16.
Yeah,
and
but
they don't want to deal with the realities of her as like a 40-year-old doing it.
They couldn't, but like you can't send someone back to high school then.
But I think, isn't that kind of why so many of these reboots fail? Because they just try and, I think with a lot of them, they just try and act as if no time has passed. And it's like, how can we get them back to where they were when those shows were on?
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly why I've never clicked with any of them.
Okay.
Because I'm like,
but
give me a grown-up take on it.
Yeah,
I'm like, give me a grown-up take on it. If we're all going to be 15 years older, like the 16-year-olds of now aren't going to be watching it like I was. So give it to me now at my age and let's actually do something interesting with it.
Like it was very ballsy of them to, like, again, spoiler alert, like Logan dies. Like
which I think is the right move.
I do as well, but again, you can kind of understand when
People
you've built this fandom off
hated it.
shipping them.
People freaked.
But like, again, it's like something had to give.
So the original plan was, when the show was coming back, much like a film noir thing, like, you know, if you go back to any like 1940s detective story, it's, you know, man on his own with the femme fatale, and one of them is screwed over. They always end up on their own.
Yeah.
The people who were like, if we're going to be coming back and doing this show for several series, as could have been the talk when it came back most recently, the whole point of it that they made was, well, you can't have her with someone at home. You can't have her running into burning buildings and chasing down murderers if she's got like a husband and a baby, and like she has to be on her own. And the only way to do that is to kill him off. So they kill him off in the last episode, and they set her off on her way. So the original plan was to then have her kind of like Murder, She Wrote style, showing up in different places around the country, that she had just resigned herself to this lifestyle of following mysteries and solving them. And that, like, nearly like Knives Out, you just get a different cast of characters.
Okay.
Which I think would have been amazing. I think if we were 5 seasons into that show now, we'd all be loving it.
Yeah.
But there was such a negative response at the time to killing off Logan that I think it killed any chances of it ever coming back.
So you don't think it will ever come back?
She is often stated as that she's up for it.
They're obsessed with this show. I will say
she really does love it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would love to see it. I'm
Yeah.
happy to dip in and out of that every few years and just have her do it. I'd watch her do that role and for the rest of the time. She's so good.
With where she is in her career now, though, I wonder, is there a part of her that she's like, yeah, I love it. Do I need it, though?
Do I need it? Yeah.
I feel like she obviously...
she's Disney and Netflix money now. She doesn't really need to be dipping back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't love Nobody Wants This. I haven't finished it, but...
thought it was garbage. I don't get it. I thought it was so... I was so mad when I watched it because everyone was talking about how good it was. And I think people are mistaking like good chemistry for like good anything else.
Yeah.
I thought it was so annoying.
People are blinded by horniness for Adam Brody, and that's fine. But
which
just
is
say
fine.
that.
Look, we've all been there.
We've all
I
been
watched
there.
the OC.
Some of us are still in it.
I just think it's so... Like, did nobody learn anything from Gone Girl? Like, what is this whole I'm a cool girl shtick about? That's the whole of the show with her being like, I'm one of the cool girls.
Do you think she works as that character, though? Because, like, Christabel has come up loads on Flop Culture because she's in various things. Like, we did Burlesque, and I said,
Iconic.
I liked Burlesque. I kind of don't buy her as the villain in that film, though. Like, I feel like she really struggles in some
She can be
roles.
bitchy, but she can't be the bitch.
Yeah, like she doesn't have enough.
Yeah.
She's not mean enough.
And I think in this show, the Nobody Wants This, she's doing the whole like, I'm so cool shtick well. But I'm watching it and I'm like, you and your sisters just come across as assholes.
Yeah.
I couldn't with it. Now, that being said, I watched 10 episodes of it, so who am I to blame when it gets coming back for season 2?
Well,
I will say they're bringing in more of the girls writers, not to make this a girls podcast, for season 2.
Okay.
Erin Foster gone, who was the creator showrunner.
See, I think then that would kind of give me hope then.
I'll watch season 2 if it's got the girls writers on it.
Yeah. That's very
Jenny
interesting.
Connor and someone else are coming in to run it.
Oh, this has been so fascinating, and I can't wait for everyone to watch it if they haven't watched it.
I think it's so, even though we've kind of spoiled a lot of the big parts of it, it's so much just about the performances.
And
that I think you'll find yourself so enamored with her.
And I think it's a nice time capsule, but like, as you said, some things have dated, obviously, needless to say. But like, for as much content as there is, it hasn't dated as badly as you would think.
And like, I know we were kind of laughing about the way that it deals with like serious topics, but it does a really good job of moving in themes of like sexual assault and murder and class and all of these things in an actually like surprising and touching yet funny way. And I don't think there's many shows that are like able to like spin that many webs and keep it all, as you say, still fairly relevant and still not offensive.
Yeah. I also just love a good sepia green, throwback when they're flashing back to Lily, and it's like, it's just so good.
Yeah, it's so of a
comforting.
time.
Yeah. Was 2004 the best year of television, do you reckon?
Oh, I'd say it's up there. What have we got? Veronica Mars, Lost. Grey's Anatomy starting, Desperate Housewives.
Grey's Anatomy started in 2004.
As the last person alive who is still watching that week to week, I am
You're fucking crazy.
say
I've talked about doing it before on Flop Culture, and you know what? I'm actually never doing that. Why would I watch that much television?
I could come and talk to you
I get
about different
sick.
Grey's Anatomy eras.
Brilliant, actually. Let's do that instead because I'm not watching the full thing. Fuck that. Very interesting. Tommy, what a pleasure. I'm sorry for slandering you.
That's okay.
You've justified yourself now. Maybe you can come back on Patreon. You can get Owen on his own turf and we can talk about Nobody Wants This when I
We
finish
can have it out, yeah.
Because I think I do like it more than you. But I understand its flaws.
I did come on and kind of slay them, and I will just say that's not why we don't live together anymore. But if you do want to find out why, come to Patreon.
True flap, yeah. Oh, what a pleasure. Tommy Byrne, where can people find you? You love a TikTok.
What's
your
love
TikTok
a TikTok. I think it's just Tommy Byrne. I just am often bored and have no one to talk to, so I just talk to my phone.
Perfect. That's my entire career, so how bad. Tommy Byrne, thank you so much for joining me on Flop Culture.
Thank you for having me.